Okay, so I wanted to make some videos and do some interviews with you. So, how do you feel being 96?
Yeah, I'll be 96,
You'll
yeah.
be 96, what, August 23rd?
Yeah, 2 weeks from today.
All right, and how do you feel?
I feel the same as I did last year.
Okay, that's good.
I'm doing well. Yeah,
Good. How are things at the home?
terrible.
They're terrible.
I don't like them.
Why?
I feel like I'm in jail there in that one little room, you know.
Really?
I don't like the food. I don't like the service. We don't have a bank. We don't have a pharmacy anymore. All that stuff's been cut out. We don't have chefs anymore. Everything's brought in.
Really?
Institutional food, hot dogs and bologna sandwiches, white flour, macaronis, crap.
Yeah.
All made with white flour. I gained 20-some pounds.
Really?
I
Wow.
was 205, now I'm 228 this morning.
Oh my gosh.
It's all because I'm
You can't get the healthy
I'm not
food.
used to eating that kind of
Yeah.
bull, but I've been on it for a year and 10 months now.
Right. What
So
can you do?
I'd like to drop my weight back. I'm 228. I'd like to get back to 205.
Right.
So that's one thing I don't like it there. No.
Right. So I've always heard stories that you were in the hospital when you were younger for a year or over a year.
Yeah, I was.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah.
What happened?
Hot dogs?
I went into the service
Uh-huh.
in September of 1935.
Yeah, you can sit down.
I went into the Army, the Civilian Conservation Corps, part of the Army, and I served a year, and then I fell in a truck and hurt my right leg,
Okay.
and I developed arthritis in it, and they sent me to Walter Reed Hospital, and I spent a year there.
Because of arthritis?
Huh?
Just because of arthritis?
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah, I had trouble. They put me in traction and pulled the nerve in my leg, and I couldn't walk, and I had a terrible time. I got out in a year. I come out in 1937. I was in 2 years.
Wow. And
Then I went,
was it your knee or your ankle or
oh, it's my knee.
your knee? Okay.
Eventually I had a knee put in then,
Right.
when they was available.
Right.
I come out in 37. I went to college and graduated in 40.
So you never ended up going into service? You never served in any wars?
Now, there's no war going on when I was
Right.
in.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
when the war came on in 1940, they drafted me 3 times, but they turned me down because of my knee.
Because of your knee.
I could never bend that knee all the way. I needed a new knee,
Right.
and they never took me. And then, of course, I began to build a family in 41 and 42,
Right.
and then they delayed me. You know, it was going to take me into limited service, but I never got in again.
Right.
No.
Okay.
The only thing I ever got out of it, they never give me anything except one thing. They did turn me over to the state of Maryland, and Maryland turned me over to Pennsylvania, and I got my tuition for college.
Right.
From when I started till I finished, they paid for it.
And
That's all I got.
where did you go to college?
Carlisle Commercial College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
And what did you study?
I studied law. I started all kinds of financial situations, and I took shorthand and typewriting and office machinery and all that stuff. I built myself for commercial.
Okay.
And then I didn't really get into commercial when I left there. It was really tough, it was depression.
Right.
I
Right.
went into a Woolworth store. I got a job working for Woolworth company.
Right.
And said, I'm going to make myself a manager,
Right.
And I did.
Right.
I made it in 2 years and 10 months. I was a manager of one of their stores, and not a little one either. I had a pretty good side because they'd taken the men away, and they advanced me very fast, and then I did 8 years.
Okay. And that's when you moved to Philadelphia?
Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Washington, Pennsylvania, and Baltimore. I
Okay.
was in all those cities. Yeah, I worked in 20-some stores.
Wow.
Then I transferred over to I transferred over then and went in with General Motors for
Okay.
25 years.
And where did you work for General Motors? In Baltimore?
Baltimore,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. And that's when you were raising your family?
That's right.
Right.
That's where I stayed there, and Betty taught school there in Maryland.
Right.
And then when she retired in 1986, and we moved up to Pennsylvania
Okay.
to get away from the city. And,
Right.
And the environment. And of course, we already had Peggy and Eddie was up here.
Right.
So I thought, well, we'll come up here. So we've been up here in Mannheim since that time.
Right.
And so now you know everything about me.
No.
I'm not telling you all the sins.
I want to know.
Perpetrated any sins.
I won't ask. But I do want to know how you met Grammy. I've never heard that story.
Which granny? The first marriage or the second?
Both.
Well, the first one, I was working for Woolworth Company. I was in Quakertown. I was in my second store then, Advancing.
Uh-huh.
And she was the next door neighbor.
Okay.
And she was the high school senior. She led the band.
Okay.
And she was an only child, and she lived next door, and we become friendly.
Uh-huh.
Am I talking too loud?
No, you're fine. You're fine.
That's how I met her.
No, it's the kids that were being loud, so.
Then the next one, I got both of them through working in the 5 and 10. I got $1 million baby the second time out of a 5 and 10 cent store. You remember that piece?
Yeah.
Well, I met her then when I went later on, and her sister worked in the store.
Okay.
And she'd come in to meet her every Friday night. She'd pick her up and take her home. I was in Cumberland, Maryland, then working for McCrory's Corporation. I went with McCrory's after me.
Okay.
And I found out that she had a 41 Chevrolet and had a job teaching school.
Uh-huh.
And so I dumped her sister, and I said, I'm going to get somebody, because I was only making $60 a week then or something.
All right.
And so I'd sent a word with her sister. I wanted to talk to her, and she'd come right away. And we made friends, and about a year or so later, while we married, and
Okay.
I moved on to Baltimore to work, and then I went to Miami and worked down. I worked a while and went back up, and we got married then in 1952.
Okay.
I was divorced in 49.
Were you nervous to ask her to marry you, or were you pretty certain she would say yes?
Well, I had something to give her.
Right?
I had 2 children, 10 and 9. I gave her
Right.
as a wedding gift,
Right.
and
is
we
that-
raised them 2 plus 3 more,
Right.
and that so far I got 5, right?
Yep. So as long as that's all we know.
So far, I mean,
Right.
sometimes I feel like dyeing my hair and moving out, buying a house and a car, and getting a young woman and starting another family. What do you think? Is it a pipe dream, or is it something to it?
There might be something to it.
Yeah.
And Grandpap, where did you grow up?
Where did I grow up?
Yeah.
For how long? You mean when I was little?
Yeah, when you were born and
Yeah, I was born in Carroll County, Maryland, in a place called Manchester, near Westminster, Carroll County, Maryland, near Baltimore.
okay.
That's where I grew up and went to school until I went into the service. Yes, it's a little town of about 1,000 people,
And what did your parents do? Were you close with them?
My parents were divorced in 1928,
Okay.
and I went with my mother. We was 4 children. We went with my mother. My father went on down south, and we stayed with her mother there, and she worked at a sewing factory. I worked in a bowling alley, setting up pins, and doing outside work, things like that when I was a kid, help out. My sister went in the sewing factory part-time, and we made out paying $8 and $10 a month rent
Wow.
for a house.
Huh.
Those were tough times in 1930s.
Yeah.
You might have read about it.
Yeah.
But if you had $1, you had a lot of money.
Yeah.
If we had $1 and a kid, everybody in town knew it.
Right.
Because when we went to work then, I was always tall and big, and the farmers always got me to help them because I knew how to work on a farm. I worked on a farm for my grandfather, and we had a 10-acre farm when I was young. And I knew how to take care of hogs and chickens and trash and work in the fields and cut corn. And we made $1 a day, but we did work from daylight until dark.
Right.
We got a meal. There was no such thing as those days as a 40-hour week, you know.
Right.
Even when I started to work for Woolworth in 1940,
Yeah.
60-hour weeks. And then on top of that, they expect you to come in and trim windows and all when the store is closed.
Right.
Even on Sunday, go in, make the fire, keep the furnace running in the store, stuff like that.
Yeah.
That was expected of you. And you were like in jail with those people that when you were their trainee for a place like that, they kept real strict, tight
Right.
hold on you.
Yeah.
And made you confirm, you know, you couldn't be married, you couldn't fool around with the girls in the store.
Right.
And you had to show them your bank book every month and make sure you were saving money. We only got $18 a week those days.
Right.
That was a lot of money. I'll never forget the manager come to me when they put me in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania to start when I come out of college. He said, you better go back and change clothes. I had my good clothes. Put my rags on and started down in the basement, you know, mopping the floors and cleaning,
Right.
calling up orders and cleaning the brass and doing everything dirty, but I stuck with it.
Yeah.
Bale paper, my hands were blisters.
Yeah.
I stuck with it. And then they transferred me. I got in trouble beating up the assistant manager, and they sent me to Quakertown.
Wait. You beat up the
I
assistant
did. I
manager?
beat him up, and they fired me
Why did you beat him up?
because he wanted me to work harder, bale paper quicker, so he could go home to his wife. He was married, and they didn't like him.
Okay.
And the superintendent found out about me, and he called me up before I left Bethlehem. And he promoted me. He said, I'm going to send you down to Quakertown now. I'm assistant manager for beating the guy up.
Wow.
And he sent me down there. And I worked there for a couple of months. And he come around one day. It was in the summertime. My grandmother passed away. I always worked for my grandmother after school. I worked hard. Go down and carry water. She had a boarding home. Carried water from the pump, you know, and brought the coal in and stuff. And when she passed away, she left me $50. I'm the only one she left anything to.
Wow.
I put it in the bank in Quakertown. And when the man came around to check, he said, let me see your bank book. I showed him that bank book with $50. He said, you saved that money? I said, I saved that money.
Right.
He called the manager over and gave me $1 raise. The manager hated that. Another $1 a week, $19 a week.
Wow.
Man, I was rich. Because I was rooming and I was boarding for $3 a week and got my laundry.
Wow.
Then I eat in the restaurant, you know, for cheap as I could. Some places I could eat for 10 cents or 25 cents
Right.
those days. And I made out. And yeah, that was my life. I had a lot of things like that going on in my life.
So, when did you work in Bethlehem? And it was only for a brief period, or?
I worked in Bethlehem January, February, March.
Okay, just a couple
That's
months.
when I got in trouble there.
Okay.
And then they sent me to Quakertown. And then they didn't leave me there but about 6 months. I learned to trim windows there, and I run the whole stock room, and then I worked on the floor.
Okay.
I learned how to run the business. You know, it was a very small store.
Right.
Then they transferred me to Philadelphia
Okay.
at 40th and Market Street.
Dinner is ready. I want to
And
Hold on one moment. Okay, that's fine.